Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of our podcast, The Road to B2 English
podcast. It is quite impressive that our podcast has reached 20 episodes.
Yeah.
Should we celebrate?
Well, we're gonna drink lots of beer tonight.
Oh, that's true. And eat lots of Belgian desserts. It's gonna be funky as heck.
Yeah.
Let's get it, I suppose. Well, anyways, we hope that you will also be celebrating our successes by studying your English Connectives, which is what we're going to do today.
Oh, hell yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, we're doing the corporate smiling to get through the episode today.
Why are we doing Connectives, though?
Well, if you remember a few episodes ago, we talked about the Cambridge Part 2, the picture comparison in the speaking exam. And the speaking exam is a really important part because, well, of course, anybody that has done an English exam knows there are normally 4 main parts. Sometimes it changes, but you know. There's 2 passive learning parts of the exam and there's 2 active learning parts of the exam. So the written and the spoken ones tend to be more difficult for everybody because you have to produce your own language. So for now, I think it would be a good idea for us to talk about the written production because we need to give our students some ideas on what to write, how to connect their ideas in a way that sounds good and looks good. Yeah.
Yes. So what are connectors?
So I think that the best way to describe a connector is to say that without them, you're just going to have a bunch of ideas that are not connected. You're going to have a lot of ideas that perhaps are not exclusive and they need to be put together in order to make sense. For instance, when you write an essay normally in the Cambridge exam, you have to connect your ideas in such a way that shows that you know the consequences of certain actions. For example, a really common one is the environment. If we recycle more, then what will happen, right? Lots of my students, they're always writing things like they've got great ideas and they use awesome vocabulary, but then they just put everything in simple sentences and they leave things completely disconnected from each other. So they'll say, people need to recycle more, the environment will look a lot better and there'll be less pollution. And I say, come on guys, we need to put some connectives in there so that you can, you know, sound like you understand how to use cause and effect, you know how to make a nice comparison or give your opinion in English, and you make your sentences a little bit longer as well, which is a very common trait of formal English. Yeah. Having a nice long sentence. It's beginning to sound more and more like an ASMR, like long sentence.
Are we brainwashing our students? Long sentences.
But in reality, when I was a student as a native English, secondary school kid, your English teachers who are teaching natives and who are teaching non-natives have the same goal. You need a combination of simple, complex, and what do we call them? Like intermediate sentences. There's a word for them. We used to call them semi-complex at school.
It does what it says on the tin.
Essentially, yeah, like a semi-complex sentence is a sentence with a connector, whereas a complex sentence has a subordinate clause. So you have to have a combo of all of these different sentences to show that you know how to use them, because that's basically what you're doing. You're just showing people that you know how to use things. I think we should separate these connectives into 4 different categories. We have some comparison ones, some opinion connectives, some contrast connectives, and some cause and effect connectives. Also, if you hear me say connectives and then also connectors in the same sentence, same thing. It's the same thing. We used to just call them connectives in school, in primary school. So that's my little baby brain getting confused. So, Anna, would you like to start with some opinion connectives?
Yes, of course. So some opinion connectors could be, I'd say that. For example, I'd say that I like coffee.
Yeah, we can tell. You've not had enough.
Or, for example, personally, I drink a lot of coffee.
What about you?
Yes. Or, for example, I reckon, I suppose, I guess. So
I guess I drink a lot of coffee.
yeah, I reckon I need a cup of coffee. Just lots of things to say that you have an opinion and that you're telling your opinion.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of my students always say, in my opinion. And from my point of view is good. Or like, in my perspective or in my view. These ones are nice. But I feel like a lot of people just reuse these same expressions. I remember once I counted how many times my students said, in my opinion, in one speaking exam, which is 10 minutes long. And she said it like 12 times. And I was like, that's a lot of opinions.
Oh.
And you really, at that point, if you feel yourself using the same expression, you really need to mix it up.
Yeah.
So those were great. Those were some really good ones. Another type of connector is a comparison connector. Once again, very useful for your Cambridge Part 2 when you have to compare two pictures. We have things like even though, as with. So for example, even though I like coffee, I can't drink it every day because it gives me a headache.
Wow.
Unlike somebody who might be in the same room with me right now. Don't look. As with is really useful when you want to say that the comparison is very little because they're very similar things. So I could say, as with any other large organization, Apple earns lots and lots of money every year. So I'm basically saying, just like everyone else. That's what as with means. Some more examples of comparisons are things like despite or in spite of to show differences. I feel like it's important to talk about these, even though I think a lot of our students probably already know them, just to make sure that we're not all forgetting the difference between despite and in spite of. They both have the same meaning, but despite doesn't have any other prepositions. So be careful because that's an easy mistake to make. So yes, they are some nice comparison connectors, and I recommend that you try to use them if you can.
So the next group of connectors would be the ones expressing contrast. So for example, the legendary whereas, which we always talk about.
Yeah, we've said a lot of things from the previous episode, haven't we, about this topic.
Yeah, for example, Anna drinks a lot of coffee every day, whereas Emily does not.
No, I do not.
And then we have, for example, yet. So yet is usually at the beginning of your sentence rather than at the end of your sentence. For example, I drink a lot of coffee, yet I'm still tired. Was that great?
Yes. Exactly.
Like sometimes these little words are the most. I find that sometimes these little words are the most difficult to understand because it's just such a small sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so fast.
Yeah, it's like difficult to remember it.
Especially when your teachers have been telling you for so long that yet only goes at the end of sentences. Because we can say, I don't have that collection of movies yet, or I haven't seen that series yet, right? But the truth is that when you use yet in this way, in spoken English, as I said to you before, it is maybe used with and yet. Could say, I drank loads of wine last night and yet I don't have a hangover. But when you're writing, perhaps you'd start a sentence with yet and a comma to show a little bit more emphasis in your essays. But that's a really good one.
Then we have, in my opinion, quite a simple one. In contrast. It's just the word contrast. And
within before
within.
Easy.
So, in contrast, it's quite simple. In contrast to Emily, I drink a lot of coffee. Yes. I think we've established that I drink a lot of coffee. Then we have on the other hand. Remember, it's on the other hand. I drink a lot of coffee. On the other hand, Emily does not.
I drink a lot of wine. On the other hand, Anna does not. Actually, that's not true. You totally do.
I drink more than you do.
You totally do. That's true.
And then, even so. For example, we've been walking around all day. Even so, we don't feel tired.
Nice. Very good. I'm kind of confused that you didn't use a coffee example, but...
Oh, no.
No, you don't have to do one. It's fine. I think we got the idea about the whole coffee thing. I won't mind, but it's not even true. I like coffee. I just don't drink it at the same intense level as you do. Just chugging it like a maniac every 3 seconds. But yes, no, there are some really, really good examples of contrast connectives. Lots of people are always using but and however. But I always see a lot of students, when they write something, they start a sentence with but, which you shouldn't do, really. But, comma, sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
You could use something like yet or however. But however, once again, is very common. So let's mix it up. Let's use some different example. And the final category is cause and effect. So if you want to show the consequences of something, especially if you have an essay in which you need to talk about results of things, these examples of connectors will be really useful. For instance, for this reason, everybody knows therefore. Both of these are really good. I could say, I am hungover. For this reason, I have been vomiting all day.
Oh, no.
Therefore, is another good one. I have been vomiting all day. Therefore, I must be hungover. So you make a deduction in that one. That one's nice. Consequently is a really, really good example. Or as a result, both of them are very, very similar. I am very hungover, consequently, or as a consequence of this, I keep vomiting everywhere. Just like, Emily, what's going on? I'm like, nothing, it's fine. I am hungover. As a result of this, I have been vomiting all over the place.
Oh.
And here's a good one, because of. I feel like a lot of people make mistakes with this one, at least a lot of my students maybe forget that they need the word because when they talk about the cause of something. I could say, because of the fact that Anna kept giving me wine last night, I have a hangover. And for this reason, I have been vomiting everywhere.
Why do I feel like I'm being thrown under the bus here?
I don't know what you mean. I'm fine. Thank you very much for coming, guys. I know our examples were a little bit silly, but I guess it's a good way to see what place the different connectors should go in a sentence. Think of your own sentences and leave them in the comments. Why don't you?
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening. And please, if you're listening on Spotify, leave us a little rating. We would really appreciate it.
Preferably a 5.
Yeah. I mean, you can leave a 1 if you want. I quite like a 1.
Yeah, but you know, when it comes out, the average is like a 2.2. We're going to be a little bit upset.
People would be curious, though.
Yes, they would.
What's happening? Why is it so bad?
That's true. They're like, am I not going to learn any English here? And then they find out that they really won't. But yes, thank you for coming to this, our 20th episode of the Road to B2 podcast. We'll see you on the next. I'll see you on the other side. See you next week.
See you next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment below if you have any questions related to the topic, and we will try our best to respond to you. Please subscribe to the channel for a new podcast episode every Saturday, as well as essential tips during the week. See you next time!